What's going on, everyone? It's Adrian from DraftTime.com, and today is December 16th, 2019. We have a 7-game slate tonight for the NBA, and in this video, I'm going to give you my top value picks, my top studs, and my top sleeper for tonight. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to use our lineup optimization tool, which you can access on DraftTime.com, and give you the top lineups for FanDuel and for DraftKings for tonight. So first of all, who's my top value pick for tonight? Well, that's a no-brainer. It's Jalen Brunson for the Dallas Mavericks. He's going to be getting the start with Luka Doncic out. So I'm expecting pretty much everyone to be all over him, but it's impossible not to be all over him, especially on FanDuel. He is $3,700 on FanDuel, and we have him projected to score 27.72 fantasy points on FanDuel. And he is $5,500 on DraftKings, and we expect him to score 26.23 on DraftKings. So he's more of a FanDuel value pick than a DraftKings value pick. I'm assuming that DraftKings priced him higher because they knew he was going to be getting the start, and FanDuel did not for some reason. But on FanDuel, I mean, you have to be all over him. He had 34 fantasy points last game against the Miami Heat, and he's actually kind of what helped spark them. Him and Tim Hardaway Jr. sparked their little comeback. They were down by 24 points, and they actually forced overtime last game where they ultimately lost. But being basically min-priced on FanDuel, you have to take him, even though he's going to be heavily owned. My second value pick is going to be Tyler Herro, going against the Memphis Grizzlies. He is $4,600 on FanDuel, and we have him projected to score 24.96 fantasy points. And he's $4,600 on DraftKings, and we have him projected to score 25.75 fantasy points on DraftKings. Now, he's averaging 24 and 25 over the last 5 games on FanDuel and on DraftKings, respectively. Goran and Justice are still going to be out tonight. Spo is starting to trust Tyler Herro a lot more at the end of games. He's getting a lot of minutes in those final crunch time minutes, and he's actually averaging 32 minutes per game over his last 5 games. And actually, the Memphis Grizzlies, who he's going up against tonight, are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They're one of the worst teams at guarding the three-pointer. So I think he's going to light it up against them. Now, who's my top stud for tonight? Well, my top stud is going to be Giannis going against the Mavericks. He is $12,100 on FanDuel, and we have him projected to score 58.96 fantasy points on FanDuel. And he's $11,100 on DraftKings, and we have him projected to score 59.78 fantasy points on DraftKings. Now, he's going up against a Dallas team with no Luka tonight. He's averaging 58 points per game on the season, but he's only averaging 51 over the past 5 games. But almost all of those games have been blowouts. Now, I know there's blowout potential tonight at home against the Mavericks with no Luka Doncic, but they actually kept the game competitive last game against the Miami Heat. They forced overtime. And if the game is competitive, Giannis has the potential to score 70 plus. And even if it's not competitive and it's a blowout, he still has a very high floor. Could still give you, 50 plus fantasy points. And the reason I'm higher on Giannis than on Harden tonight is simply because of their price. They have Harden a lot more expensive on DraftKings and $300 more on FanDuel. That game has a 9.5 point spread as opposed to the Bucks game, which has an 11 point spread. So both of those games have blowout potential. So I think Giannis is the better pick just because he's cheaper. My second stud tonight is going to be Andre Drummond going against the Washington Wizards. He's $10,000 on FanDuel, and we have him projected to score 50.37 on FanDuel. And he is $9,300 on DraftKings, and we have him projected to score 51.23 points on DraftKings. Now, he's questionable tonight, so you may want to keep an eye on that. Now, he's going up against a Washington team tonight, which is by far one of the worst defenses in the league. They're the worst team in terms of giving up fantasy points to opposing centers. So if Drummond does, in fact, play tonight, I think you got to pick him up against this defense. Okay, now let's go into my top sleeper. So my sleeper for tonight is going to be Lonnie Walker for the Spurs going against the Houston Rockets. He is $3,600 on FanDuel, and we have him projected to score 19.14 fantasy points on FanDuel. And he is $3,800 on DraftKings, and we have him projected to score 19.3 fantasy points on DraftKings. The reason I say he's a sleeper is because he's had a few games where he did really poorly over the last few games, but he also had a game where he scored 42.8 fantasy points, and it was against the same Houston Rockets team. So I think if he, he has a very low floor because he might not play that many minutes. But if he does play a lot of minutes and he does a good job defensively against James Harden, I think he could see 30 plus minutes, which he did last game against the Houston Rockets. So he's my top sleeper pick for tonight. Let me go ahead and let's run the lineup optimization tool for tonight for DraftKings, and let's see who it picks up. So you got Kyle Lowry, DeLon Wright, CJ McCollum, Luke Kennard, Norman Powell, Danilo Gallinari, Giannis, and then you got Dwight Powell. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's run it for FanDuel. And for FanDuel, you got Jalen Brunson, Derrick Rose, Tyler Herro, Norman Powell, Pascal Siakam, Giannis, Kaminsky, Nerlens Noel, and you got Andre Drummond. Okay, so that's the top lineup for FanDuel. Now remember, you got to keep an eye on Andre Drummond. He's questionable tonight. But anyways, I hope this was a help tonight. Let me know what you guys think of my top picks, and good luck tonight.